Hello, my name is Charlie Plain, Midnight Lich on the forums. I'm the director of First Edition, and today is my office hours. It is just before 10 a.m. Pacific time on Saturday, July 6th. And hello to all the women, men, and non-binary friends out in the universe. I'm going to be hanging out for the next hour working on 1E stuff and taking questions if you have any. I'm in the chat room on the CC's website, and I will periodically be popping into the YouTube Hangout chat as well to see what's going on there, if there's anybody live. So there's nobody here right now. Well, that's fine. I'm a little early, so I'm going to just get to work. I'm going to work on contacting some people for Roads to Worlds interviews because I'm behind on that. So let's do that first, and we'll see if anybody comes in to say hi. I'm probably going to occasionally talk to myself because that's what I do normally. Gotta have caffeine. All quiet still. like the link sharing. Stop that. Turn that back on. Generally, I'm not going to post these videos if nothing happens in them. So if it's just me sitting here breathing and doing work for an hour, I'm not going to post the video. But yeah. Hi, Alan Gould is in the chat room. I assume he's watching me. But... speculating as to why we got nobody in here. Probably not a good time. Finishing up a Q&A that I'm sending out. Oh, am I not screen sharing? Ha ha ha, I forgot to turn it back on. Awesome. I was screen sharing the entire time. Yeah, Alan, feel free to jump in. We can at least make this entertaining. Entertaining for us, if no one else. Take your time. Just answering forums. Alan is here.
Yay.
Hi, Alan.
Well, not bad.
Not much. I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, we've been kind of running different circles for the last bit.
Yeah, it happens.
Oh, yeah.
When did your little one gets so old. I don't like that.
Oh, I know. She finished grade 7 last week, so.
Wow. See, the problem with little ones getting old is it means we're all getting old, and I don't like that at all.
Yeah, it's the weird thing is the people who make me feel old are the daughters of our local game store owner.
Oh, okay.
Because when we first started going there, they were like 6, and now they are both graduated college.
They're both over 20.
Yeah, they're both
Ouch.
over 20 now. But you see them and you have like, no, you're supposed to be like, you're not supposed to be running the gaming convention. You're supposed to be the little adult, right? So
Supposed to be 6.
Our daughter.
yeah, and now for everybody else, that's our kid, and that's way more fun when it's other people doing the. You can't be that big. It's like he is. Yes, she is.
Yeah, the passage of time is a pain in the butt.
Yeah, we got a company coming next week, and that'll be our other big. How did you get so big things? So.
Yeah, that's the problem with kids as they grow up.
Because they're so close to Delilah.
Yep. So, how's things in? I was going to say sunny, but I probably shouldn't assume that.
It's not bad today. It's partially cloudy, so it's got a little cloud cover, but not too terribly hot. Salem's good. The Lobans have been gone all week. They've been back in Canada visiting Chris's folks.
Ah.
So I've been in this giant house, this giant century-old house by myself, which is creepy. It's creepy normally, but when there's nobody else here to cover up the creepy noises of the house and just 2 cats, it's been a lot. But they get back tonight, so
Okay.
I'll probably be longing for the quiet shortly.
Oof. So what's big in Trekland today? I guess we should probably get on topic and all that.
Oh, I've today is the German Nationals. That's happening.
So they should be pretty deep into it by now.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if there's any results yet. I suppose I could go look. But, that's the big event today. I think it's the only event today. The Continentals 2 weeks ago. That was exciting.
The
American Nationals. Sorry?
That this is Kaiserfest, right?
Yes.
Final round, 4 players can potentially win it. Julius versus Johans and Meinhard versus, I'm going to say Johan, and I'll apologize if I got my J wrong. Yeah.
Probably a thread somewhere for that. Yeah, makes sense. Very cool.
Well, good luck to all of them.
Indeed, I hope they're having fun. I was getting caught up on my Road to Worlds interviews that I'm behind on, so I sent out 3 of those, and then later today, depending on who wins and how quickly they post their deck, I'll send out another one. That'll be exciting. So, the cage came out. I think overall the reception's been pretty positive, which is good. It's not always the case when we put out new cards. But it was legal at regional last week, and a couple different people were trying it out. So we'll see how it shakes out in the next couple months. And like I said, we have American Nationals at Gen Con and the first weekend in August, and then Worlds in Germany or Austria the weekend after that. So we'll see how much it has an impact there. Behind the scenes, things are going pretty well. The next set in the OS block is Romulan focused, and it's going really well. It was probably the first time I can remember since the Next Generation that the expansion name was obvious and immediately agreed upon by all of the parties. Like, I think we had decided what it was going to be called before it even went to play testing. So, fun fact, I don't know if you were around for when we had this discussion, but I really wanted to call the cage, I wanted to call it Star Trek. That would be the name of the expansion. And I lobbied for it pretty hard, but nobody really bought it.
Someone was after Wagon Train to the Stars, weren't they?
Wagon Train to the Stars was suggested by a couple different people, but there was some vicious hatred of it from others. So we went with sort of the choice that, you know, if you did ranked voting, it probably would have been the highest number of first place and second place votes.
Yeah.
Whereas Wagon Train to the Stars had some first place votes, and then it was like dead last on everybody else's list. So expansion names are, you know, they're really marketing, but we don't do a ton of marketing because we don't have to try to sell it. So it's mostly just what's a good way to refer to this and make the most people happy. So yeah, I think things are going pretty well on the Trex dive. I know you've been busy and haven't really been around.
Yeah, new job, killing time. So
it always happens. The nice old comfortable jobs make it easier to slip onto the website during the day and get a few things done. It's not so much at new jobs where you're busy.
Well, and I'm really enjoying it, but it's eating up a lot of brain cycles. So
understood.
Yeah.
Creatively fulfilling, but tiring.
Yeah. Oh, and congrats on finishing off the opening titles in cards.
Almost. We need New Civilizations, and I'm really mad we missed it. It was in the file for a long time, and then I think it was, and I could go look, but I think it was sort of a Key Vespaggio variant. I think it was plays to draw a card for each 23rd century mission, limit 4. So it was like a let's see what's out there. And it wasn't. We liked it and it was fine, but it was not getting used at all because card plays are such a precious resource. People don't want to use them on card draws very much. Although, as a counterpoint to that, several opponents I played at Continentals played Kivas. So I had my mirror image working overtime for me. But so it's not impossible to use card draw cards. But that was the card that I believe was New Civilizations. And when that went away, I think we just missed that we didn't shift the title somewhere. So we'll have to figure that one out. So. But it was close enough that I got to do that fun article, which I liked.
Was a good. That actually brings up. It's a shame we don't get some people in because I'd be curious to get some opinions on it. Is just, you know, what is your regular card play supposed to be used for? Because you always hear it's like, well, this isn't worth a regular card play. This isn't worth a regular card. It's like, okay, so like, what do you use? Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's. I know in most of my decks, and I think the general wisdom. I can't obviously speak to, and at least this is for tournaments. As we're discovering, getting results in on this survey that we're running, there's a lot of people that circle the community that don't play tournaments. But I think in the tournament sense, you know, when we've got games that are where you as a player might get 8 turns and therefore only get 8 card plays, it's got to be something that's pushing you directly towards winning. So it's got to be a ship, or it's got to be a personnel that has a skill that you need that you can't otherwise free play, or some sort of interactive card. that's going to stop your opponent, which doesn't leave a lot of, there's a lot of ways to draw cards that aren't playing a card. And so if you can lean on those, you're going to use your card play for other stuff. I would suspect in most tournament plays, they're getting these for ships or extra bodies. But that's a good question. Maybe we'll put together a little forum poll and just ask people what they're playing their card plays for. It'd be nice if you could use more stuff. If there were other ways to play cards, but that gets into some of the bigger problems in the game that aren't as easy to solve as these guys need more diplomacy.
Yeah. Well, and you get a balance thing because it's okay. I can ore process and I can net a card that way, or I see 2 cards.
Yeah.
Okay, so if this is something that costs a card play, okay, so what's the upside? I was going to say upside, and upside's not the word, but what's the premium, right? Like if getting net 1 card is free, how much do you need to get for it to be worth a card play, right?
Right, and I was surprised to see Kivas as much as I did. I think it's still good in decks that don't have a better option. I mean, that's sort of the gold standard for a card play, card draw, right? It's netting you 2 cards. You're getting 3 into your hand, but card advantage wise, it's trading a card to get +2. And we've printed variants on that are better. Like I said, let's see what's out there, and New Frontiers, I think, is the other. Is the DS9 one, where they can get 4, so you can trade 3, but they have restrictions on them. So it's hard to say. I thought we were as recently as 5 years ago, that was going to be the model. New deck types get a little better than Kivas, but I think the game, it's really just turned into vomit people and go. Which, it's not hopelessly to that point, but a lot of competitive decks are just, if this isn't going to help me get more people out, it's not going to matter. And then that pushes you towards Handshake, which is going to fill your hand up. Why would I play Kivas to get 3 cards when I can play Handshake and get 7 and then dump 2 of them into play right away? So. I don't know. It's a good question. That's probably worth discussing.
Well, and Handshake gets you it's even got a free draw option on there too. So.
Yeah, because you can Handshake at the start of the turn and then play something else for more.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't see that terribly often.
Well, people don't like giving your opponent a choice on that, because that first option is I can just burn 3 cards, but.
Well, that's true. And in a card advantage match, that can matter. But most of the time it doesn't. It's just you not getting what you wanted. So
yeah.
Anything you can't, it's like very, very founder. Anything you can't control can't hurt you. Anything you can control can't hurt you. There's an interesting conversation around the devil going on.
I saw that. I'm gonna go see what I'm.
How do you feel? So the devil is it's an interrupt. I think it's from Premier.
Yep.
It could be AU or Q. It's very early.
It's Premier.
That it nullifies a treaty, and that can be devastating for a deck. So how do you feel about a card like the devil being in the game, just in general? I'm curious.
Well, it's been, because it used to be bad enough that's why is it open diplomatic relations from OTSD? Why there's a card that lets you go fetch a treaty back. They did give you a bit of stuff for that. The flip side is really narrow, because all it does is it blows up a treaty, a Horgon, or a Wind Dancer.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear a story about somebody actually using this on a Wind Dancer. Like,
it probably happened way back in the day, because Wind Dancer was a strong card for a while.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore.
Yeah. So I'd say in like current play, the problem is, okay, functionally, nobody's got a Horgon anymore. Like that's there's better ways of dealing with that. Nobody's dealing with a Wind Dancer. So you're stocking a card to kill a treaty, but you're not putting in your deck. Nobody's playing Q's Tents to go fetch it. Like there's no way to get it, right? Like, or you're like there's no simple way of like, I'm going to toss this devil somewhere, and then when you get a treaty, I'm going to go aha and ruin your day with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those cards where if you get it in your opening hand against a treaty deck, you've ruined their game.
If they aren't doing ODR or have some sort of recursion into deck, like, I mean, there's ways to pull treaties back, but yeah, it's very niche. So I think it hits in that sweet spot of, if you are willing to have this very dead card and you are lucky enough to pull it against an opponent who is betting that, well, why would anybody blow up a treaty? Nobody blows up treaties anymore. That strikes me as a sort of gameplay, like especially if we're talking competitive, that's that sweet spot of, you took a bet and it paid off, but I don't think it pays off enough to ruin treaty decks, because obviously everybody still plays them. So
Michael Moskoff is in the chat on the YouTube, and he was commenting on our ship discussion, our card play discussion. He basically says, ships are regular card plays. Practically anything else can be free. And I think that is the opinion of people who play tournaments. I can play most of my people for free. Any event that I really want, somebody's going to download. So my card plays are going to be ships and extra bodies if I don't need another ship. So it'd be nice to see that widen up some, but I think that's a function of where we are with competitive game. As we give people more reasons to take shorter turns and have more of them,
it opens up spaces.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you used to play 1E, before it went off the rails, you up through Voyager, you probably got 15 card plays in a turn in a game.
Oh yeah.
Now you get 8 at the outside, and probably less than that. So you've got to make them count.
I mean, you used to have time to build up Deep Space Nine big enough to blow up wandering Borg cubes. Like that.
Yeah. Well, jumping back to the Devil briefly, I think DS9 decks are really, really hurting because of the Devil. I know nobody really uses it. I don't think anybody's put it in a deck in forever. I have to look. Actually, Greg is saying the same thing in the chat room. Letok on the forums. He's saying treaty decks are already bad, and in particular DS9 decks are already bad. So the Devil just sort of makes it worse to play those, because if one of them gets good, the Devil has been in one deck in the last 6 months,
and 16 in 2 years, 3. How many years?
And I would guess a lot of those are sealed deck.
Yeah,
but maybe not. So, I mean, you're right. It's a very niche card, but if I'm playing DS9 out of the station, and you kill my treaty, I basically now have to. All I can do really is recover that, because none of my. If you killed it before I got the Defiant out, I'm thinking of standard Here by Invitation deck, where it makes your Fed people compatible with the station, but without the treaty, they're not. So sorry, those cards let you download Fed people to the station with your sites. But without the treaty, they're not compatible. So if you didn't get the Defiant out on turn 1, because you can also play the Fed to the Defiant, you can't play any of your Fed people unless you happen to bring a Fed outpost, which most of those decks don't do.
Because your seed spots are precious.
Yeah, because you're already. I mean, DS9 decks in particular, they're super seed heavy, and so essentially, if you ever want to push a treaty deck, if you ever want to have a treaty deck be a viable option, they have to have a way to deal with the devil, and they tend to be seed heavy. So seeding ODR comes with other costs too, because then you can't use any side decks, which is tough. I think that's what it says.
No, that's the triple treaty.
Oh, you're right. That's the triple treaty.
ODR is just you can get a treaty and then it's discard 2 cards in hand for a treaty in your discard pile, and you can do that as much as you want. So, or no, it's a one-shot. It discards it. Yeah.
Yeah. Greg says it seems weird having this hard counter that mostly counters bad decks at the moment, but that's a quirk of the way the game and the meta has gone. Yeah. That's probably true. I mean, in Premier days, using a treaty deck just gave you more better people, and theoretically, if you built your deck balanced, you could still do stuff because you still have enough Fed people and Romulan people to do things independently. Nowadays in the era of go fast and smaller decks, losing your treaty, especially if you're out of balance, can be really, really rough. So
I'd say the balance still comes down to it's to make a devil reliable requires doing a lot of things that nobody wants to do normally. Because the only way you're getting your hands on a devil, if I'm thinking currently, is you'd have to stash it in a tent and play a tent to pull it out.
Yeah, you'd have to grab it with an OGQ's tent or just stock it and draw into it.
Yeah, but I mean, stock and draw, it's that's not reliable enough to go stomp a DS9 deck first turn or
No, but again, then it comes down to, did I get it in my opening hand versus the DS9 deck?
Yeah.
So Michael has said the similar problem with the card Combined Task Force. That's the Fed Klingon one. He wants to play it, but it's too scary because there's other ways to nullify treaties too. Is it Cartwright? You could just kill a Fed treaty.
Why am I not finding?
I generally.
What were they? Smokes a Fed treaty. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's story.
That was a good idea.
Well, yeah. I generally dislike a card that stops the opponent from even playing the game.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not talking about interaction. Like if I come and I build up a fleet and I kill all your stuff, that's an interactive deck. I've worked for that. But a single card that I can bring into play or play. I mean, this philosophy is why Let Me Help has the board text on it. Let Me Help is a new card that rewards you for using heavy gender dilemmas. And if he didn't do something about the board, a board player just ruins that deck. And to be fair, I have anti-board bias and dislike the board. Board are hard enough to deal with, but they didn't need that extra free pass on that deck. If you didn't put that text on there, Let Me Help is unplayable against an entire affiliation, and I don't like that. And that's kind of where the devil falls for me. Is here's a card that essentially takes a deck and says, unless you've specifically dealt with this one card, you don't get to play. It's not quite that literal, but it's very close in my mind to that. So,
although Cartwright is the way scarier one to my mind, and now I'm looking at the set and what set it came out in, and I get where it came from. And because I realize Charlie's doing it and I haven't been, so Admiral Cartwright's from the motion pictures, and he's a Fed AU it's movie. And the salient points here is he is security, so he is downloadable by Defend Homeworld, and once per game may nullify any one Federation treaty.
Yeah.
And it occurs to me the reason he's printed is because motion pictures would have been right in that stretch where mono-fed bridge crew was the thing to be playing.
Well, and especially with, they had pushed motion picture stuff in particular because they had to counter the Delta Quadrant stuff somewhere. See, Cartwright would have made more sense to me if the DQ stuff actually had treaties, right? Because you had Vidian Sodality and Kazon Collective, which just gave you a treaty. So you just paired them with Feds because why not? And they were bananas, right? So if those had actually been treaty cards, then I think Cartwright's an interesting strategy because, as you said, he's downloadable with security. He's an admiral, so he free plays if you're playing Office of the President, which at the time, why weren't you? But yeah, it's just he was just really hammering Camp Kittimer decks. So he really was doing. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if I was looking at DS9, I'm not worried about the Devil. I'm worried about if DS9 gets good, you don't grab Devil, you grab Cartwright, and you just pop them first turn, boom. So long, thanks for all the fish. Ugh, I hate it when I think of these.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that at least DS9 there's at least one or two people in the DS9 property logo that can download treaties. Like, I'm thinking there's a win that I don't know if there's anybody who downloads Fed Bajoran or Fed Klingon, but that's at least an option for those decks, is give them an easily fetchable person that can get you a second copy of your treaty. But
well, and this is more a DS9 or a NOR only thing, and I shouldn't be theory crafting on stream, but hey, what are you going to do? A site that gives, or something else that gives that ODR toss 2 cards to fetch a treaty back text.
Yes, that's another option. Or even just a site that put a body here and your treaties can't be nullified too. So, that's or both even on one card, but something to sort of give you that bit of protection, because even something like that, if you have to have a guy in the, communications center and I board your station and kill him, then I can, stuff like that doesn't bother me because there's give and take and interplay. And once again, as I'm a big proponent of, run some Quins or something in your deck. Just, I play the Devil. I'm like, cool, I Quin that. Stop it. There should be countering. Trek players really hate countering, and I hate it too. I mean, every time I play Magic Arena and somebody drops an island, I just get this immediate hatred of everything about blue in Magic. But it's healthy for a game to have counter spells, for lack of a better term. And Kevin and Amanda got hit with a Nerf bat pretty hard, understandably, because for the longest time in 1E, it was counter wars,
Well, and Magic, even if you look at blue counter spells, they have figured out that a counter spell it can't be cheaper than the stuff you're killing. There's a point. Yeah. There's a reason why you don't get a double blue counter spell anymore, because you need, and Amanda and Kevin's, just to get it back to Realtor, it was free. It was okay, you did all this work to get a thing. Just. So, yeah. I mean, it got nerfed. I don't think it got nerfed as bad as everybody thinks it does, because all we got rid of was the recursion.
But there's a point loss element, which ties back to the modern, the pressure that tournament players feel to win the game as fast as possible. And in that environment, 5 points can be devastating. So, I've played, the deck that I've been playing recently is designed to go, you can win with 2 missions if you don't have to spend any points. But most of the time you have to go to 3 missions and you've got 20 or so extra points built in. So I'm running Quinn because I don't care. I've paid for that cost up front. But a lot of decks don't do that or don't want to do that. So it's an interesting space to look at, is can we make some new counter spells that have different costs to them, So, that's an area that I'm interested in exploring in future expansions, because I think it's not particularly going to matter while the game is vomit people, but I don't plan on keeping that game in that state as long, forever. It's got to evolve some. So
Yeah.
It's an interesting thought. It's an interesting discussion. So anybody who's watching this VOD later, if you would like to weigh in on the discussion of, the devil and treaties and counterspells, please do. Because
Well, I'm trying to remember, because for the devil, the other thing was that ODR really, and I imagine there's people who have better memories of it, but my memory is that as soon as OTSD came out, and it was, here's the treaty, and back then you weren't getting free seeds or anything, like ODR was how you got a treaty.
Yeah.
So then you did that, and no, I seem to remember the devil kind of ditched because now you needed 2, or you needed to recurse, because you'd have to blow it up. They were going to go get it back anyway, and now you had to go get it back again. And was it worth the like?
You had better things to get back with your Toph. Well, Toph didn't do interrupts, did he? But
no, Toph does interrupts. Toph doesn't do people.
Toph doesn't do people. All right, yeah. You had better things to go get than the devil again.
Yeah.
So.
And I think there was some social pressure, because it means you were doing all of that to, like, okay, yeah, I think that almost got treated worse than Armada back in the day, just on the, like, okay, you're doing all of this, just like, don't be that person,
Yeah, don't be that guy. I definitely think that's the case. But and to be fair, there are elements of that still in play in both in the 1E and 2E communities. There's very, like, watching the Borg. Again, I'm biased, but watching Chris Stonseby pilot the Borg to just devastating effect. One of the reasons I think we don't see more Borg played is that they're really hard to understand how to use, and B, there's that, like, I'm not taking this to a local tournament and beating up on the 3 people I've managed to pull out to come to this tournament. Like, at least in the environment right now, there isn't a way to play Borg harmlessly. And even if you are, they're still so dang different than the rest of the environment that if I'm not good at Borg and can play around it, I'm probably dead before we even start. I'm probably losing this game before we even start. And
see, and I'm very pro Borg, but there is a Borg decks, especially Borg interactive decks, end up in that same bucket of, and I mean, this is just from our personal, where I got told, like, just put it away already, right? And it's like, but no, it's fun. I don't have to think about dilemmas. I have, I'm playing a much better game, and
I think ultimately my problem with the Borg is they have too many things. If the Borg played weird and got, the scouting and that, but they didn't have all of the other crazy interactive, aggressive stuff that I could do, and, shields and weapons 20, it wouldn't be as hard to take, I think, if they didn't feel like they had everything. They have literally all the tools in the toolbox.
The counter I'd have is that Borg's weakness is also the thing that speed decks don't want to do, because you can stall a Borg deck by just throwing bodies at it. Just, here it is, pick a fight, they're dead. But these are bodies that speed decks do not have hanging around spare, and they don't want to be, like, they're hitting that weak point in a bunch of in speed decks, and I think they serve a role there. And depending on how the meta goes, because I like my Borg to be inevitable, not fast.
Yeah.
But that's a real, I mean, it's like Armada. That's a real narrow band to hit between too slow to be worth it and too fast and it's easy, right?
Yeah, and I think that's and Greg in the chat room just said he wanted to start a discussion about how to beat Borg, especially a Borg like Chris's deck. And I think that's a good discussion that we should all have, because I think Borg players would also like to have that discussion, because I know Chris in particular felt bad in some of his games because it's just like there's nothing you can do about this once it's going. Like, you either have to get insanely lucky and outrace me, or have an AHQ to hide at, and even that's just stalling the inevitable because he just switches gears and goes and scouts missions. So
I don't think I've seen Chris's deck. So is he doing the assimilate counterpart, like all your people are my people plan? Or?
He had all of it in it. He could scout missions. And he was mostly just battling. He would just mostly bring like multiplexer and orbital bombardment and blow up all of your ships. And there was nothing you could do to hide, because landing didn't matter, because now orbital bombardment lets you target them. Multiplexer lets me hit Ryan Sutton, who's one of the best 1E players I've ever seen, had like 2 landed ships and a docked ship at an outpost, and they all got blown up in one turn because the Borg are just, again, they have everything. They have every tool in the toolbox, and it's so hard to deal with unless you are specifically dealing with it. And
yeah, it's there an Armada deck that can also. I build mine weird because I always build my Borg deck small, and I personally lean to the personnel. My theory of Borg is, or my theory as a player is, I'm bad at dilemma skill matrices, so I'm going to trust that you are better at it than I am. So I'm just going to come take your guys and assume that your guys are better at going through dilemmas than my guys were. That's my theory of Borg. But I mean, the big counter for Borg, like blowing up all the ships, if you're at an HQ, then you've got the homeworld, like your orbital defense platforms and your...
Right, but then the problem is, if you go turtle at your homeworld, he just switches gears and goes and scouts missions and wins that way, Like, I know he had assimilate counterpart in there. He had assimilate species, so,
Yeah, you just do whatever they're not,
Yeah, you could just do wherever they're not. And it's just... And Chris also made his deck, and I think he seeded something like 20 dilemmas, too. So not only does he have hugely powerful ships and adaptability, but he's also got a ton of stopping power, And it was pretty lethal to watch him play it. So I think that as a whole, and I've been singing this song for years, so don't. I'm able to separate Charlie the player's hatred for the Borg from Charlie the director of 1E's job, but I think there is a lurking Borg problem in the game.
No, I'm not
100% sure what to do about it, because it's literally like a blob deck where you take one piece out and it's got 15 other things that it can do that are just as good. So short of banning Borg, which not seriously discussing, they could potentially be a big problem. And I think the general culture of 1E and the people who play 1E are the biggest reason why it's sort of a lurking problem and not an imminent problem. And now that Chris's deck is out there, we'll see. I expect to see it at Worlds, and we'll see how it goes. It's not unbeatable. A very skilled player that understands Borg can play around it.
Yeah. I mean, my first thought, and this is just going off your description, is because Borg's weakness is always, every time they're in a fight, they've eaten a turn. Like, if they're going to go hide, then it's like you just got to throw some guy at them, that's a turn. There's a guy, that's a turn. And you just, because that's how I lose my Borg, is it's somebody who's got the extra bodies, and you just, that end, Borg have the weakness to a point, and again, it's tricksy, but they can only do one thing at a time, right? Like if he's off scouting, then depending on how your timing is, they don't get, like, there's a window where they can't swap out and start shooting at you without eating the mission.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but again, it's very 90 degrees to how everything else is playing. So I get that. Yeah, you're not thinking of it the way you have to treat them differently than a Klingon deck or a Romulan deck.
Well,
which
I'm
is
just
what I
sitting here
love about
thinking-
Borg, but I get that that's a,
Yeah.
I've played so much Borg that I'm rubbish at everybody else now. So
I'm just sitting here thinking back over the last 10 years or so, and I can't remember playing a game to completion against the board because I am out of the game before the game is over.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and it's Borg Solver just isn't always that fast. Like I mean,
well, but it's not even, it's like I played James Heaney and he destroys my ship and then I start rebuilding and he invasive beams over to my outpost and assimilates all my humans, and it's like, okay, I got nothing. You know, what am I supposed to do here? You wiped me out, I rebuilt, you wiped me out again. I've got no ability to deal with that. And I'm not just going to sit here and watch you solve missions, cutting through my dilemmas like butter. It's just...
Yeah. No, I meant it just in that, like, because there used to be, Borg scout ship, like, spam out, like,
yeah.
a traditional solver, but they're, Borg's, Borg scout vessels are crunchy and taste good with ketchup. Like,
Yeah, Michael has a comment here. I know people will disagree, but I think Federation is unplayable at high levels because of stop first contact, and that's probably true. I mean, Federation is another affiliation that's got a lot of powerful cards, but a plate full of disadvantages. I don't think the Borg have that. The Borg have all of the powerful cards and the tiniest narrow amount of disadvantages.
Yeah. Although stop first contact isn't getting used, and as a Borg player, I never touched it. It's not worth the like. I'll go assimilate homeworld. I'll assimilate all your homeworlds. But stop first contact, I never found was worth the extra cards to like.
Yeah,
it's a lot of spaces, and if you're in a Fed heavy meta, then yeah.
But even I would say like now in particular, if OS Fed is going to get the spotlight shine on it, they're immune to it because they're all AU people anyway.
Yeah.
So, but in the day, yes, it was a big problem, and there are always going to be cautious players. I think, and Michael acknowledges this. Lots of people are going to disagree with his point. There are always going to be cautious players that are going to not play a deck because there's a hard counter to it.
Although I think I disagree with the idea that stop first contact is a hard counter. It's a lot of hoops to jump through, and it's not that hard to run the clock out. Like I think most Borg decks don't run it. It's not worth the, because it's a Borg deck is now having to add in. I mean, you have to add in a stop first contact. You have to add in a Montana missile complex. You gotta add in your time travel. Like there's a lot of hoops to. Whereas if I've assimilated homeworld, I've kind of I guess I always found that it's like, if I've assimilated Earth, I've ruined Fed's day already. I've eaten your headquarters and I've eaten your outpost. I always felt stop first contact was a swag move. That's the thing you do, like you're sending a message if you're doing that, and you're doing it to say that you did.
That may be.
Yeah.
I liked what you said earlier, and Greg has mentioned this as well, of liking the idea that Borg should be inevitable and not fast. And certain tools that they've been given lately, new arrivals, they will be coming, are two that Greg mentioned, have made them very fast. So maybe that's a place where you take away some speed and you put Borg back to that slow burn. Their control deck type of style where it's like, I get my combo going and you're in trouble, which I would have less of a problem with how the Borg play if there was a way to beat them. But right now, even pure speed can't beat Borg in the hands of a skilled player unless the other opponent is more skilled than I am. So.
Well, The problem is it's you need stuff that you don't need in other places, and I'm generally a big fan of, okay, if they're coming to blow you up, like if your deck can't handle getting shot at, there's a certain amount of, because a pure speed deck is jettisoning contingency plans in the name of speed.
Yes, a direct solver, yeah.
Yeah. So I like the idea, like, if you can't handle something because you jettisoned your counters in the name of speed, that is partly on you. I would agree, Borg, and again, it's that problem of, like we used to talk about Armada decks, where it's a half-turn window, right? If you're a half-turn too slow, it's pointless to play it. If you're a half-turn too fast, you wipe out everything in your path.
Yeah.
And Borg, I can see like new arrivals giving it that extra kick. I think they will be coming, got them to the point where a Borg deck didn't spend its first 3 turns just getting 8 bodies on a ship so they could start doing something interesting.
Yeah. It shaves some time. So.
Yeah.
I mean, what you're saying is true, and there's a lot of. I don't think that there's a simple solution to any of these problems that we've discussed today. I think there's cultural changes that need to happen. There's, some designs that need to come into play that like push players, even speed players, to wanting to slow down a little. Borg are very good and very difficult to understand, and like I said, there may need to be something that happens there, and I don't know the best approach to it.
Well, and it may be beefing up smoke bomb effects, because you're dividing that difference between I'm just showing up to wipe out your stuff, and I'll be back in 3 turns when you have new stuff to blow up. Like,
yeah.
Oh, I don't know if Kim was laughing at me or not.
No, I'm laughing at my podcast.
Okay. Yeah, it's a tricky thing, and it's affiliation balance, and I think Borg just has that extra tweak of they do things differently, so the same tricks don't necessarily work.
Yeah. Well, these are interesting things that we're all going to have to keep talking about and having an eye on. So.
Oh, can I throw one more question at you though?
Sure.
Let me help. Which,
yes.
Was there any thought of just removing or changing the gender rule instead of sticking it on the card?
About the Borg?
Yeah.
Not really, because way back in the day, not even that long ago, I want to say three or so years ago, that was floated as an idea, and there was like severe and immediate backlash to it. I think it was actually back when I was doing hindsight columns, and I wrote in when I was writing about the Borg that the way that I would design the Borg now would be to give them a lot of the stuff that's in the rules cards to deal with, so it becomes a meta choice, right? So if there was like adapt sexuality or adapt gender as a card, and you played it, and it let you ignore gender rules, I feel that'd be a better design to the affiliation, because they have a way to respond to these things, but it's not baked into the affiliation. Huge backlash to that, just the thought of it. And it was a very much a ship has sailed moment for that, So that's where, we knew that something had to be done, because we've been sort of laying groundwork for Let Me Help for years. We knew that something had to be done about the Borg, but a rules change was never really going to happen. It's too, once you give people something, you have a very hard time taking it away. So it was never really an option. So I feel like Let Me Help solution is a good one, because it's narrow. I've seen a lot of Borg players upset about it, and I'm like, it only matters if it's in play,
And it's not hidden agenda, and
yeah,
I mean, as a Borg player, I have that and then I have to remind myself that it's not that bad. I probably have more dislike for the gender dilemmas piece, but that's a very different conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, as a Borg player, it's going to seed. It's not hidden. So, I mean, before turn 1, I know what the rules are for the day. And
yeah. Well,
and also, I
it
don't think a
only-
Borg deck's going to do anything different. Is the really funny? Like they're just gonna.
They just have to. They can't just walk through those.
Yeah, like
they just have to face them, like everybody else is.
Yeah, and I think as a Borg player, being that you don't know what's under a mission until you get there, right? So it's just like, okay, you're actually telegraphing, I know what's under there. Unless somebody's being real next level. And I mean, what's a Borg player going to do? They're going to go scout it and they're going to throw bodies at it the way Borg always do because...
Well, and the other thing to keep in mind is, your unique guys aren't gaining gender if they don't already have it. So like counterparts have male, Queen has female. All the other unique drones don't get it. This card only makes the universals have gender. So if you're unique people or you're important people and you flip up, female's love interest, you could send some universals to just go off to deal with that, and your good people don't have to deal with it. So,
yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see. I understand where Borg players are coming from, not being super happy about it, but I think the Borg are dead is overstated. But we shall see how it actually goes. So. Yeah, I mean, the Michael says it's one of the best cards in the CC era. It's a game changer in the best way possible. Greg says he's a big fan. He likes that it's strong, but also counterable. There's cards like Lumba and Hoshi and Uhura, which counter that card, they can walk through gender limits. So I'm a big fan of Let Me Help. I think Let Me Help is sort of a way to mix up some of these old rules without changing some of these old rules. There's been a lot of hullabaloo, and I don't want to get into it about the download timing. Should download still suspend play? Should it just be at any time? That type of thing. Putting that on a card and limiting that card to some number of decks may be an interesting way to see how that goes. Like if you made a card like Let Me Help that gave you some benefit, but then changed how this other thing works, that could be interesting space to play in that isn't a big rules change that's going to generate a lot of controversy. Well, I want to thank Alan for jumping on the chat channel with me here and making this a more entertaining video than me staring at my screen for a while. Thanks to Greg and Michael who were chatting along. I'm going to post this VOD here shortly, and we'll have another office hours in a couple weeks. I'll post the date and time as soon as I get to them. So I'm going to go take a walk, I think, because it's nice out, and get some fresh air. So again, thanks to everyone who joined us and is watching this live or watching this later. So I'm Charlie, and I will see you all in the future. I'm going to end the broadcast here. If I can find the right window.